The constant screenshots on Twitter might make you think otherwise, but I promise you, no one wins at DFS every night. This game is a marathon, not a sprint, where you realize your expected value in 1 or 2 or 3 big nights a season and spend most of the time slowly losing. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. That is just the reality of DFS. But how do you know you're on the right track? Let's say you're sticking to strong bankroll management. You're optimizing your contest selection portfolio, keeping your lineup building process simple on SaberSim with build, review, revise, and late swapping to account for breaking news, confirm starting lineups. How do you make sure, or how do you know that that big night is coming? My name's Jordan Chand, I'm SaberSim's head coach, and to answer these questions, we built Contest Flashback, the best research and review tool in the DFS industry. By taking real past contests from DraftKings and re-simulating the lineups played in those contests 100,000 times, we can calculate which lineups have the highest expected ROI, and which DFS players are expected to make money over the long term. Reviewing your lineups you played in Flashback, as well as the lineups from the top pros, should be a part of your daily routine. To check your work and make sure you're on the right track, to answer any questions you might have had as you're building your lineups the day before, and to pick up on patterns from what the top players are doing in contests. Remember, we commit to the MLB DFS season because the reality of DFS is that most players lose most nights. You're counting on realizing your positive expected value over the course of the year on 1 or 2 big nights a season. But to know that those nights are coming, you need to be playing in a way where your expected value is positive, where that big slate when you end up taking first place or second place or something like that pays off the losses of what came before it. Contest Flashback lets us verify that we are on the right track, that we're playing in a plus EV way, and that those big slates are coming. So the first thing you should be doing on Contest Flashback is reviewing your own teams, reviewing your own profitability. You can find Contest Flashback on any past slate on DraftKings in the Contest tab, and all you need to do is click into the contest that you want to view. It'll take a second to load all of the lineups here. And then once you see leaderboard with however many lineups were played, as well as this user tab, it's ready to view. So let's click this users tab here, and we'll go ahead and make this a little bit bigger so we can easily see what's going on. Now, if you built lineups on SaberSim and uploaded an entries file to SaberSim on the previous slate, we should in general identify what your username is and bring it to the top. So you can see right here, I had an 8.25% expected sim ROI across the 20 lineups that I played in the solo shot last night. So the first thing I generally like to do is skim through all of my contests and just give a quick glance on what my ROI was. So if we bounce over to this Mega Minimax, which is a larger tournament, might take a little bit longer to load here. We can see that in my 50 lineups, I had a sim ROI of about 9%. In the Chin Music, my single entry had an expected ROI of about 32%. And in the Quarter Jukebox, I had a sim ROI of about 14%. Now, I'll generally go through and look at all of the different contests I played, and I do this for every single slate that I'm playing. In general, I'm looking to be profitable about 3/4 of the time. It's not going to happen every single slate or contest. Sometimes there's just discrepancies in the way that the field played versus what the SaberSim sims expected. And there's just some other variants mixed in there of what lineups happen to end up in what contests. But overall, I'm looking to be above that 0% ROI 3/4 of the time, which means the portfolios of lineups that I'm playing are expected to make money over the long term. And these numbers that you're seeing are even more accurate than the pre-lock contest sims that you see in your builds, because at this point, it's accounting for the actual lineups that you competed against in your contests. The other thing I want to call out is the sim median profit and the sim 99th profit, because I think it's very helpful to level set expectations of what DFS looks like and why we say commit to the season. You can also look at the average winnings here, so I'm going to pull this over as well. So the average winnings is essentially how much I make per slate I play this portfolio of lineups. It is the total winnings I accrued in all of the post-contest sims we ran here, divided by the number of sims that we ran. And you see that I'm making about $1.44 each time I play this particular slate. But the sim median profit is the middle outcome. If we take all of the different potential outcomes that could have happened to me on this slate, what is the middle outcome? And you see that that outcome is minus about $57. So playing this portfolio of lineups that is expected on average to earn me $1 each time I play it is actually, in the more realistic way, has an average outcome of losing $57. That is because the 99th percentile outcome, when I have that top 1% finish, I'm making about $1,400. And you can really see here why I say you need to commit to the season and why nobody wins every night. In fact, most people lose most nights. You can actually literally see it here in the post-contest sims. And you can see in this particular contest last night, I did have a losing night. I actually was a little bit under my expectation. I lost $78, where the median is losing about $57. But SaberSim's identifying that because the 99th percentile profit is so high, and if I manage my bankroll appropriately and play throughout the season, I'll get enough of these to earn money. So you can really see where the profit comes from here and what it looks like. It's not about nightly min cashes or earning a little bit of profit each time you play. It's about those big slates a few times a season that pay off for the losses that is your average expectation. So if you're profitable and your sim ROI is above 0, again, at least about 3/4 of the time, looking at this helps immensely to keep your mind right and be able to commit to the season. Now, if you're not profitable, if you're seeing that more often than not your sim ROI is negative, first review this course. In particular, relax some stands and some takes that you might be taking if you're going very heavy with lineup rules and custom exposures and things like that, and focus more on letting the sims identify some high quality spots to play. You can also lower big stands and fades, even if the sims are recommending it, and get closer to the field. That will help make sure that your lineups are a little more resilient to the field lineups being different than what we thought they were. So if you see really big leverage on a pitcher or a hitter or a stack, reduce that and get closer to ownership. Also, make sure you're not missing late swap opportunities. If you do end up taking a 0 or just don't late swap when a starting lineup comes out that's quite a bit different than expected, that can really sink your ROI. Finally, make sure that you are playing the best contests possible. You will see as you go through this process that your sim ROI on those contests that are under the $3 range that the top players can't enter are generally going to be a lot higher than the contests that are above that $3 range. So make sure you're playing the easiest contests first. If you're still stuck, take advantage of Office Hours, our daily live stream on our YouTube channel, and our build reviews, which are every Monday and Friday, to ask questions about where you can improve. For the build reviews specifically, you can send your build to a coach, and one of our coaches will review it live on stream and walk through any potential mistakes you might have made. But the second way you can use Contest Flashback is as a research tool. And if you followed along on the course thus far and you're looking for the next place to start leveling up, this is really it. It's not just your lineups that are in Contest Flashback. You can see everybody that played a given contest. So you can study the players that are showing up as the most consistently profitable players in the contests you play. There's a lot of variance in who actually takes down first place in any given contest, and sometimes the lineup that actually wins first isn't even a very good one. Contest Flashback will let you see who's maxing these contests every night and maintaining a very high ROI when doing it. Over the course of a season, those are the players that are most likely to make the most amount of money. And you can study their lineups and their exposures using Contest Flashback to pick up on patterns, as well as answering any questions you may have had when you were building. So let me show you how exactly you can go about doing that. We can right-click on the Entries tab here and sort by players that 150 maxed this tournament. In general, I like to look at the players that are playing high volume first. Then sort by sim ROI, and we can see the players that were the most profitable playing this contest. Now, as you go through this process and repeat this over and over again, you'll generally see some names showing up here over and over again. Some of the top players playing DFS. Guys like Zeroth2, Shady Advice, Crafty Lefty are all definitely a part of that group here. If we want to look at Shady's lineups here, we can filter on these lineups, and now we're looking at only Shady's lineups. If we expand this projections tab, we can start to take a look at the exposures. So let's say I wasn't entirely sure about what types of stacks I should have used on last night's slate. We can go through and see what Shady did. Looks like he was very heavily invested into 5-2 stacks with a smattering of other stacks mixed in. If I want to see what particular stacks that Shady was getting to, we can review that exposure here. Or if we want to even get all the way narrowed down to the players, we can look at individual player exposure here. Another contest I always like to keep an eye on here, and it's worth noting you don't only have to look at contests that you actually played, is the big flagship GPP. So in this case, this was the bat flip last night. I like to look at this contest here. It's very interesting to see in the big lottery contest, what are the most profitable 150 maxers doing? So let's look over at the users here. And again, in this time, set this to 150 and look at sim ROI. And we once again see shady advice, but let's take a look at somebody else's lineups here. Let's look at Pittsburgh payment plans. And again, we can look at the actual individual exposures here. So we see Pittsburgh payment plan, a former Millie winner as well with SaberSim here, was a little more diversified in the stack types, but very heavily focused on those 5 stacks. On the team stacks, a little more spread out than shady, and took a little bit of a different stance, actually a little lower on Pittsburgh overall, higher on the Cubs, the Mets, the Orioles, and so on. So I'm sure you're thinking right now, okay, Jordan, I get it. What do I actually do with this information? Well, the first thing you can do is as you are building your lineups and you're going through the build, review, revise process, if you have questions about certain spots for the slate, maybe your research is in conflict with what you're seeing from the Sims, or the Sims are taking you in the direction of taking a really big stand on a team that you didn't quite expect. Take note of those questions, literally write it down, and then remember the next day to go back and check and see what did the most profitable players, the top pros, do in those spots. Did they reduce exposure on a team that they were getting a lot of or that the Sims really liked? Did they handle a spot you faded the exact same way? What do their overall exposures look like? What do their stack types look like? Now, you can't go back in time and replay this slate with this exact information, but you will be able to pick up on patterns over time that you can then start to incorporate into your build, review, revise process. A lot of some of the general things that I tend to do when I'm doing my build, review, revise, from limiting some of the smaller stack types from showing up in my builds, to intentionally trying to fade the chalky SB2 by stacking up against them, those are things that came up from me picking up on patterns looking at Contest Flashback every day. And we're obviously talking about baseball DFS here, but we have Contest Flashback for every sport, and you'll notice different patterns start to jump out to you as you make this a part of your process across all of the different sports you might play. I will mention as well as if you prefer to look at individual lineups to see what individual lineup constructions look like, once you're filtering on a particular user, you can see that in the leaderboard column here. Don't forget, you can change between the compact view of viewing lineups and the detailed view of viewing lineups here in the upper right. So if you prefer to look at actual individual lineups, you can see what those look like here. So let's sum up here. First, commit to the season. Remember, MLB DFS is a marathon, not a sprint, and we can literally see using Contest Flashback that your middle outcome, your average expectation, is to lose money on any given night. The big wins a few times a year, the 99th percentile outcome, is going to pay for those losses, but you should use Contest Flashback to check your work and make sure those big wins are coming and stay mentally on track. If you're not seeing that you're profitable in Contest Flashback, review the course and what we've learned in these videos and take advantage of things like office hours and SaberSim's build reviews to plug any leaks in your game. And second, study the sharks. See what the top sim ROI players in the toughest contests are doing and incorporate your findings and those patterns into your unique build, review, revise process. And that's it. I really can't stress enough how much I love Contest Flashback and how it can just really be a difference maker to your MLB DFS process. But if you have any questions that I didn't cover here about it, you can always reach out in our Discord server or by emailing us at support@sabersim.com. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Good luck this season.